So we're going to be taking a look at a New York Times article, Why Women Had Better Sex Under Socialism. You would think maybe there wouldn't be a relation between the two things, but that's where you would be mistaken. When Americans think of communism in Eastern Europe, they imagine travel restrictions, bleak landscapes of gray concrete, miserable men and women languishing in long lines to shop in empty markets, and security services snooping on the private lives of citizens. While much of this was true, our collective stereotype of communist life does not tell the whole story. Some might remember the Eastern Bloc women enjoyed many rights and privileges unknown in liberal democracies at the time, including major state investments in their education and training, their full incorporation into the labor force, generous maternity leave allowances, and guaranteed free childcare. But there's one advantage that has received little attention. Women under communism enjoyed more sexual pleasure. A comparative sociological study of East and West Germans concluded after reunification in 1990 found that Eastern women had twice as many orgasms as Western women. Researchers marveled at the disparity in reported sexual satisfaction, especially since East German women suffered from the notorious double burden of formal employment and housework. In contrast, post-war West German women had stayed home and enjoyed all the labor-saving devices produced by the roaring capitalist economy, but they had less sex and less satisfying sex than women who had to line up for toilet paper. Consider Anna from Bulgaria, who was 65 when the author met her in 2011. Having lived her first 43 years under communism, she often complained that the new free market hindered Bulgarians' ability to develop healthy amorous relationships. Sure, some things were bad during that time, but my life was full of romance. After my divorce, I had my job and my salary, and I didn't need a man to support me. I could do as I pleased. The woman was a single mother for many years, but she insisted that her life before 1989 was more gratifying than the stressful existence of her daughter, who was born in the late 1970s. All she does is work and work. And when she comes home at night, she is too tired to be with her husband, but it doesn't matter because he is tired too. They sit together in front of the television like zombies. When I was her age, we had much more fun. The Republic gave me my freedom, she said, referring to the People's Republic of Bulgaria. Democracy took some of that freedom away. As for Ms. Gruber, she has no illusions about the brutalities of East German communism. She just wishes things weren't so much harder now, because they championed sexual equality at work, at home, and in the bedroom, and were willing to enforce it. Communist women who occupy positions in the state apparatus could be called cultural imperialists. But the liberation they imposed radically transformed millions of lives across the globe, including those of many women who still walk among us as the mothers and grandmothers of adults in the now democratic member states of the European Union. Those comrades' insistence on government intervention may seem heavy-handed to our postmodern sensibilities, but sometimes necessary social change, which soon comes to be seen as a natural order of things, needs an emancipation proclamation from above. So, funny thing, the study that they cite, I click onto it and it sends me to an ad. One of those ads that demands that you shut down your browser and you give them your personal information. Like, no joke, a straight, like, ad bot it gives me. So I wasn't able to look at the study in question. But I have a feeling this is complete BS. And even if it is true, I'd rather give up just a little bit of sex if it meant that I didn't have to live in a communist state. It's interesting to see websites like the New York Times full-on encouraging and promoting socialism, saying that the sex was better. Don't worry about the living conditions, but the sex was pretty good. It just seems funny to me, like somebody recalling an abusive relationship that had a good sex life of sorts. But 10 years ago, you wouldn't see New York Times, even though they were really liberal back then, they wouldn't have promoted this sort of thing back then. It's just interesting how everything's out in the open. But the only disappointing part is that people have been pushed to the far ends of things. People who would normally be a little more closer to center are now getting pushed to the ends by a lot of the craziness that's going on today. Another thing to keep in mind is that in this article, when they say socialism, they really mean communism. And it's not because of code language, it's because the woman that they're talking to or referring to, she is referencing her life under communism and how her sex life under communism was more fulfilling than her life under capitalism after the wall fell. So throughout the article they mention socialism, but they really mean communism. And again, it's not because of code language or anything crazy like that. It's simply because that the source they're referring to is talking about their life under communism. But they couldn't have a headline that says sex is better in communist countries, because that would be outrageous. However, on a completely different topic, and I'll end on this note, if you ever have wondered why the Libertarian Party isn't picking up any steam, here's a good clue. They tweeted out this: "It's sad that we can look to North Korea for an example of more freedom than the United States." Referring to a Business Insider article, North Korea has been branded as a weed smoker's paradise. But I'll go ahead and leave you with that. Let me know what you all think, and I'll see you all later today with a little bit of something else.